Hi, and welcome to Prepping Essentials. During the height of the Cold War in the 60s and 70s, governments around the world started setting up national emergency alert systems in order to provide warnings to the public of an impending nuclear attack. The idea was that warnings would be broadcast over TV and radio so that citizens could take shelter and, hopefully, live to fight another day. Well, times moved on, technologies improved, and there are now a variety of government and non-government emergency alert systems covering TV, radio, telephone, and internet-based communication systems. But the burning question is, will you get an emergency alert before something hits the fan? Let's find out. The variety and potential scale of something hit the fan scenarios continues to grow at an alarming pace. Since the dawn of time, the human population has always been at risk from natural disasters such as earthquakes and volcanoes, or tsunamis, hurricanes and tornadoes. However, as human society and technology has grown, so too has the list of potential something hit the fan scenarios. Over the centuries, new threats have evolved. The 14th century saw the advent of global travel, with nations setting out across the world claiming new territories. This movement of people and cargo made possible the threat of a global pandemic by enabling the transfer of diseases across the continents, which directly led to the Great Plagues of the 14th and then the 17th centuries. The 20th century saw the conflict between nations transition from regional conflicts to warfare on a global and industrial scale. The late 20th century also created the potential, for the first time, to destroy the entire planet through the development of nuclear weapons and the subsequent arms race between the US and the Soviet Union. It also saw the advent of international terrorism, which in itself has grown in scale and variety and reach. Over the subsequent decades, terrorism has increased until we reach the 21st century, where both nations and terrorist groups have the capacity to conduct operations and deliver attacks which span the globe. This century has increased both the speed and reach of previous threats. As a result of global mass transit travel, the risks of a pandemic spreading across the globe have been amplified. A disease which breaks out in a remote part of the world can now be carried across the globe in a matter of hours. So too has the risk of terrorism, as can be seen from the World Trade Center attacks and other attacks launched against a variety of transportation systems around the world. This century has also seen the rise of new threats which had never been conceived before. The rise of the internet and the ever-increasing dependency upon it for everything from food production, transport, communication and the delivery of essential services means that a single computer operator could, in theory, cause the collapse of a nation. Indeed, we've already seen significant cyber attacks by individuals or small groups of individuals which have resulted in the collapse of communication systems, banking systems and transportation systems. Governments too are actively seeking out ways in which they can weaponize the internet to attack other countries, and some have already done just that. Add to this list the threats caused by global warming and overpopulation, and the list of potential disaster scenarios has grown to new heights. Unfortunately, our ability to predict such threats or to adequately warn of impending disasters has not grown by the same degree. Whilst it's true that we do live in a world of instant communication and we routinely have news stories broadcast from one side of the world to the other side of the world, almost in real time, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're always going to get the news that you're looking for, or that you're always going to get all of the news. Quite often, stories that we might be interested in as preppers do happen in isolated or remote areas of the world, where communication systems are still primitive, or where there is no news media or free news media to pass on the news story. Similarly, our dependence on the mains utility grid and the internet means that if either of these were to be affected by the disaster, then our ability to communicate globally or even regionally would be severely disrupted, or indeed stop altogether. It's also interesting to note that our mainstream news media has become ever more controlled by both our elected and unelected hierarchy, who have their own agenda. This means we're increasingly being fed a diet of news which has been heavily edited by those in positions of authority. And when you add to this the advent of social media and the ability to spread fake news or propaganda extremely quickly to a dedicated global audience who will readily lap that up, then you have the real potential for complete chaos in communication when a disaster event unfolds. I do and always will make a point of checking local, national and international news on a regular basis to try and keep informed of what's going on around the world. But I am conscious that I'm not getting the full picture. I know that there are many things going on that aren't reported in the mainstream media. And indeed, there's a classic example of something that appeared in the news literally just yesterday about a potential catastrophic disaster involving a meteor which had entered the atmosphere over Russia and exploded with a force that's 10 times bigger than the nuclear bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima during World War II. Although it was reported yesterday, it turns out that this actually happened last December. So the burning question is, I guess, why did we only find out about it yesterday? So where am I going with this video? Well, the point I'm trying to make is that regardless of what potential disaster event might occur, the one thing which you absolutely cannot count on is that you're going to be given some kind of advanced warning so that you can prepare. The reality is you probably won't get any advanced warning. With that in mind, it's worth taking the time to check your prepping supplies and equipment and try to identify what you might need to do to improve on them. Take the time to regularly review your planning as to what actions you would take were any of the more realistic potential crisis events to occur. Think about where would you go, who would you need to take care of, how would you communicate with your group, and what additional threats are you going to face as the grid and society starts to crumble around you. The key to prepping is in its name, prepping, which means being prepared in advance of the crisis, as when the crisis hits, you'll only have what you've already got stored up. And as I suggest in this video, most crisis events will arrive unannounced, so there won't be time to go out and get some more stuff. Well, that's it for this video. I hope that you found something in there that was of use to you. If you did like the video, then please do click on the like button, and again feel free to hit the subscribe or the share button. As always, I look forward to receiving any comments or questions you might have, so just pop them into the comment section below. But for now, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again on the next video.